Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is Brother Jake Fry from Emmanuel Baptist Church, here to bring you your midweek word for this week. Now, this week is going to be a little different because I also want to talk about where we're going as a church and just a few announcements, just to kind of update you with everything going on with the coronavirus situation. So let's start with with the announcements first. We're still planning on sending out a newsletter. That's what we're wanting to do. But I want it to be worth your while and worth Miss Sally putting the work into mailing it out. And so I'm trying to get as much information as I can before we send that newsletter out. But I do want to just fill you in on a few things. One is right now we are trying to watch what other churches around the area are doing. I'm talking with other pastors just to see what their churches are considering doing. And not that we're necessarily going to do everything that everybody else does, but I want to have input and feedback from other people as well. I'm also going to be attending an online webinar with the Tennessee Baptist Convention tomorrow, and they're going to have ideas and suggestions about reopening. So hopefully that'll give us some information, and I'm going to try to include some of that as well. Some of you I have talked with, and it seems like the heart of the entire church right now is, look, we want to get back as soon as we can, and as safely as we can. And so we're going to be working on that, try to do some things, hopefully next week to get a plan moving, and we'll fill you in and keep you updated just as soon as information continues to come in. But right now, everything's still online, just for right now, until we could get a little more information and work on a plan for reopening back up. But I also, before we move on to our midweek word, I just want to stop and thank Miss Sally for all her help, just the way she's helped me during this time. And I also want to thank Brother Mark for coming in. He comes in every week and videos these songs, and he's always happy. He's always willing to serve, and so I just want to thank him for what he does too. And there's many of others who I see and talk to throughout the week, and you know who you are. I don't want to try to name names any further because I'm sure I'll forget some. But what we've seen is God really pulling His church together. Excuse me, and the God's people coming together and working together just keep things going, and so I'm thankful for that. And then I also want to thank you finally for just the great encouragement and feedback. I've talked to many of you, and you all have been saying that you've been able to watch these services online, whether that be on Facebook and YouTube. And I just thank you for being willing not to just sit at home and not watch church services. It'd be easy to sit at home and not pay attention, and but so many of you are actively trying to worship, and I just thank you for that and your faithfulness to the Lord in that. And also in your giving, I know the new guy is not necessarily supposed to come in and start talking about giving, but you guys have come in and just the giving has been very consistent from what I can tell as a newcomer. And I just want to commend you all for that, and just thank the Lord that the Lord is providing for His church. The Lord is bringing His people together. And just like we said from the start of all this, God is sustaining His church, and He's going to keep doing that once this coronavirus passes over. So let's get into the Word for just a few minutes then. And I want to call our attention to Ephesians chapter 4, specifically the first 3 verses, which talks about unity. So let's read that together. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 1 through 3. The Bible says this: I therefore, that's talking about Paul, I therefore, a prisoner for the Lord, urge you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which you have been called, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. Paul is writing to the church at Ephesus, and what he's doing is calling for unity. So something about Paul's letters is usually the first half talks about theological truths, and the second half talks about how to live those out, just practical application. And so Ephesians has 6 chapters, and it's very clearly divided. The first 3 chapters, theological truth, and then we begin chapter 4, which is the second half, chapters 4, 5, and 6, and it's all just how do we live out this truth that we believe. And so the first thing Paul points out is, guys, you've got to live in unity. And so I just want to encourage you right now as we continue to move forward and kind of test the waters and see when we should open back up, when we shouldn't, that we need to bear with one another. As he says that we need to have all humility and gentleness with patience, bearing with one another in love. But he also says that we need to walk worthy of the manner in which we have been called. And there is no way to walk worthy of this great call that we've been called to, which is salvation, other than in unity. It does not do the church any service for us to sow seeds of disunity amongst ourselves or against other churches right now. You know, Jesus said that people would know that we are his disciples by the way we love one another. And so right now is prime time for Satan to attack the church and try to cause disunity and really mess up our witness in this community right now. So I want to encourage you we need to be patient with one another right now. We need to love one another, to bear with one another a little while right now. Have humility towards each other as we try to go through all this together, because as one dear brother I spoke with this morning said, all we can do is the best we can right now. And I think we all understand that and believe that. But it also says that we need to be, in verse 3 says, we need to be eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit and the bond of peace. There needs to be an eagerness about us. Unity does not just come and stay, right? It takes work to have unity in a church. It takes work to bear with one another in love. So be eager to do those things. Be intentional. Look for ways to show love towards one another and show unity to one another. And this really goes 2 ways for us. Because one, we think about other churches and when they're reopening, and we can talk amongst ourselves, and we can agree that churches are opening back up when they should. We can say, well, they really opened up too soon, and then we can say others, I can't believe they're waiting that long to open up. But it doesn't do us any good to talk about those churches, because at the end of the day, each church is going to have to do what is best for their own congregation. And so no one has ever had to do this before. So we need to have peace and bear with other churches as they begin starting their services. And we also need to strive for unity within our own church as we move forward in this as well. There is room for disagreement about when to start. Some may have the opinion, and I haven't noticed any disunity, but some may have the opinion, we should have started 2 weeks ago. Some may say, man, we don't need to start back till July. And then some are saying, look, whenever we all agree to start, I'm ready to go. I just can't wait to get back in church. But I want to be safe about it. There's all kinds of different opinions. But the good news is this is not a matter of salvation, right? There's room for disagreement in the body of Christ concerning when we open back up. There's room for disagreement even within the same congregation about when to open back up. But the thing we have to focus on is the gospel of Jesus Christ. We cannot let these maybe some differences that may be around take our eyes off the gospel of Jesus and spreading the message, because that's what unifies us. The gospel is what unifies us. King Jesus is what unifies us, and his Spirit. And so, friends, I just want to encourage you as we move forward. We're going to have to make some decisions about when to reopen and what that may look like. And things, honestly, if I'll just be straightforward with you, things may look a little different especially starting out. And so let's just bear with one another. Let's have love and humility with one another, and be eager. Let's be intentional about this great unity that we can have among one another, because the gospel is going to be presented one way or another. And I pray that God would use this church, His people, to do that. And let's not forget that there are eyes watching right now. There are unbelievers watching this church right now, and they will see how we treat one another during this time. So brothers and sisters, let's treat each other with humility and bear with one another in love and strive for unity that only Jesus Christ Himself can bring. I love all of you, and I can't wait to see you all again. And I just want to thank you for tuning in and listening this week. This has been your Midweek Word with Brother Jake Fry here at Emmanuel Baptist Church. We'll talk to you soon.